I start by saying the report was commissioned following consultation I had with my colleague, the Minister of Telecommunications, and we agreed that we needed to ask the Competition Commission to do the investigation through a market inquiry. And the interim findings of the Commission was released on the 24th of April this year. The Commission opened a window for public comment where players in the sector, consumers, regulators, indeed all South Africans had an opportunity to comment. And based on this further reflection, the final report has been completed and is tabled today. The main conclusions from the report confirm the basic thrust of the results previously released. And as I went through the executive summary, it was clear that the finding of the Commission is we have a competition problem in the market, and in this market for data services, that prices are higher than they should be and higher than in many other markets elsewhere in the world, that profitability levels are high, reflecting potentially anti-competitive outcomes, and that these may be the subject of an excessive pricing investigation. They found that the structure and practices in the market results in discrimination against lower paid consumers, that roaming markets are not working or are not working as well as they should, and that we should do something about it. And the Commission will shortly be taking us through the detail of their recommendations, but these are quite significant recommendations that seek to address the issue of retail prices and seek to remove the differential in the pricing charged to low-income consumers and high-income users of data services. There's a range of other areas that the Commission makes recommendations on, and I think we're looking forward to it imminently. Now, my colleague, Minister Ndabeni Abrahams, has been leading our thinking and our work on how to deepen the size and the impact of the digital economy and the use of digital technologies throughout the economy. She's played an active role in the commission that the President has set up and in our thinking about how to position South Africa to benefit from a competitive ICT sector with a key driver of it being data services. And so I want to build on that by making 4 observations, one on growth, one on economic inclusion, one on development, and a final one on democracy. The first relates to economic growth. Do data prices and data service access really matter greatly in the economy? And the answer is it matters enormously. Data costs are critical to the performance not just of the digital economy, but of the entire economy. Because what we've seen is the digitization of economic activity. If you think of the 20th century as the century of oil and steel, then the 21st century is being reshaped by data. Economies, citizens, consumers use this as the new currency of daily interaction. The academic literature, whether it's studies by the World Bank or the OECD, have all indicated a very strong relationship between data prices and access on the one hand and GDP performance on the other hand. So if we want to grow the economy, if we want to lift the structural rate of economic growth, we need to have the lowest possible data prices. We need those prices to be competitive, and we need access to be enhanced. Look at the top 20 global companies today. 9 of the 20 are directly in data-sensitive parts of the economy. Let's call them the data-driven companies like Google, Facebook, and so on. What is increasingly important is the way in which the broader ICT sector, of which the digital element is a key one, reshapes not just the digital economy, but the entire economy. Food companies, banks, car makers, all of them increasingly rely on integrated digital platforms to be able to produce. So it matters for growth. Second is economic inclusion. In the policy reflections within government, we have spoken not only about growth, but also a growth that brings in young people, that brings in black South Africans, that empowers the rural population. And when data service prices discriminate against the poor, against those with low incomes, then they go against public policy, which is about greater levels of inclusion. Policy should be concerned about this, and we need to ensure that we don't create a new digital divide in society. And there are many great examples of inspirational young South African entrepreneurs using the digital economy, innovating, whether it's new taxi driving platforms or fintech applications, but young people are reshaping. And so cheaper data prices give greater access to young consumers, and the young generation is finding its feet in this economy, and we need to help them with this. The third is about development. The data revolution is not only about the traditional economic activities. It's not only in the production of goods and services that we find digitization. Healthcare is and will continue to be fundamentally changed by data. Access to learning, to education, to skills development is a function of learning platforms that are increasingly digitized, and it supplements normal education and increasingly opens up opportunities for young people to experience the best education that the world has to offer through these digital platforms. And so you can take any area of development and you can see the digital footprint reshaping that area. Finally is the issue of democracy and an informed citizenship. Whether it is communication exercises or election campaigns or the normal communication between government and citizens, digital platforms play a greater role. In the conversation between South Africans and among South Africans, social media is a key driver. When the generation pre-digital, they call us the non-natives. When we grew up, it was a different level of social engagement. But the digital natives, those who have grown up in the digital economy, communicate via this. And so for all these reasons of growth, inclusion, development, and democracy, it matters what happens to prices. And so the findings and the recommendations of the Competition Commission will be carefully studied by ourselves. It will be reflected on, and we will certainly back the actions that are necessary to help bring data prices down. I should indicate that the Commission has taken an unusual approach, an interesting approach, an approach that I characterized in April when the provisional report was released as something akin to a social compact, that it seeks to engage the industry, and if that engagement results in something positive, as it recommended with a market inquiry on the grocery retail sector a week ago, then we can have a new deal for consumers. And it's also said if, in fact, that outcome is not satisfactory, if it's doesn't result in a real material and sharp reduction in data prices, then there are other remedies that the Commission has indicated it will follow.